Good morning and welcome to IT Live Thursday edition on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. We got the normal Thursday crew, Justin Wells, Ian Boyd. I'm Joe Cook. Thank you for coming and watching. And if you have not yet liked this video, do it real quick. Subscribe to the channel. We will be bringing it all weekend. If you have not yet been to Inside Texas, well, no better time to do it than right now. Go ahead. You will get $1 for 7 days. Today's Thursday. Means you get all the pre-game analysis you can find on InsideTexas.com, all the post-game analysis. Sunday may be one of the best days to be on Inside Texas this year, between quick thoughts from Ian post-game, reaction from coaches and players and recruits, Paul Wadlington's analysis, Will Gallagher's photos, bunch of different stuff, stats, Pro Football Focus, anything you might want. And then, of course, that'll get you in the lead up to the all-important Vanderbilt game. So make sure that you head to InsideTexas.com, use the promo code. No, there is no promo code. Just get 1 week for $1 and then 50% off your annual subscription.
You have to say, because Joe sent me.
That's what they're waiting on that at the home office in Nashville. So, of course, it's a big game. Justin, Brett Nelson always brings it in these. Would a win over Georgia be viewed as a bigger win than the Bama game last year?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. That Bama win last year on the road was Sark's signature win at this point, at this stage, I feel like. And so, I mean, it would be big. It's top 5. It's happened. This will be the 3rd time it's ever happened. It's going to be large, but in the bigger scope, I think going to Alabama and doing what they did to Nick Saban last year that had never been done had magnitude that is going to build. This program is going to build off of for the next 5 to 10 years.
Ian, what's your take on this one?
I think it'll be close. I just wrote up today, I think a win over Georgia would actually be more meaningful than the win over Alabama in terms of what it signifies about Texas's chances to win a championship. But Justin, I'm not talking about like a media narrative or like how it resonates. I'm just talking about in terms of what it tells us about the fundamentals of this team and if what they're doing is gonna work in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If you thump Georgia at home and like they're throwing the ball all around the yard on Kirby Smart's defense and they're not getting gashed by Beck or the Georgia run game, then it's like, this is the best team in the country. Probably this is the favorite in the playoffs. Narrative is tough though, because that Alabama thing is significant for all the reasons Justin said. On the other hand, people could say, well, yeah, people were saying, yeah, you beat Alabama before their quarterback knew what he was doing in a one-off in the preseason. So bookmarked by gimmies. Can you handle the grind of playing a top team in the SEC when it's bookmarked, when it's sandwiched between, your rival in Oklahoma and another SEC team? So there will be resonance, I think, if they win. Justin's probably right. It probably wouldn't be quite as much as when they beat Alabama.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the fact that this is a conference game. And, if Texas wants to win the SEC championship, it'll be that much more important. You take down one of the biggest contenders for it, hand them a second loss, maybe knock them out of the race as a result of that second loss. And then you have to survive some road tests against some teams that have turned into, I don't want to say plucky underdogs because it's the SEC, but teams that have turned into, maybe top 30 teams for sure, maybe one top 15 team and another top 25 team. But I think this was probably more important as far as what it means to like the individual season. But as far as like to program and narrative, like you were talking about, yeah, it may be the Alabama game. Again, thank y'all for joining. And again, thank you to Brett Nelson for the question. Ian, you wrote something on Inside Texas. Your Tuesday and Thursday stuff always brings it. How the Georgia Bulldogs will give the Texas Longhorns their last big test. And I think this has kind of been the theme, the narrative that both fans of other teams, naysayers, people were like, oh, you haven't played anybody. And Texas fans who probably admit the same are all pointing to and understand how important this game is. And you went into the specifics of it.
Yeah, I think like to win in the playoffs, generally you need to have two qualities. Michigan arguably had a third different quality. Number one is you got to be big and deep in the trenches. And Georgia is usually the most athletic, physical offensive line in the country. So going up against Georgia's front, if you can't withstand that, then how are you going to win, right? If it's not Georgia, then it's Ohio State or Alabama or Michigan or whatever. And then second is you need that high-level passing game, because you're just not going to win consistently against teams of that caliber by just trying to run the ball. If Texas goes out and beats Georgia running the football Saturday night, then it's going to be like, whoa, that's different. To date, that's not been the best way to do it. You need the great NFL receivers. You need the competent quarterback. And then on the other side, Georgia has those things. I don't know if their receivers are really where they need to be, but Carson Beck is definitely awesome. Their offensive line is still really good. Their defensive line is still really good. So you know that Georgia has something close to the right formula to win. And to go up head-to-head with them in those places and win would be really illustrative. And then for Michigan, I don't know if Michigan actually had the top-notch passing game either, but they had an elite passing defense. And that's why they won the national championship without the super high-level passing game.
So I think something that will really illustrate your point about how it takes an elite passing game to win in this modern era of football, and I think that's been about 10 years old now, at least as we know it. Since Lane got to Alabama, basically, I think is a good starting point. When you just for the sake of this argument, when Lane got to Alabama basically from that point on was either winning the national championship with passing offense or losing the national championship because of passing offense. So you look at the 2021 season, Stetson Bennett has the game of his life, 8.6 yards per attempt. They win that game with passing because Georgia just was not, they got some volume rushes and one big one, I think, over the course of the game. But A.D. Mitchell, Brock Bowers, that wins them that game.
You're talking about the national championship against Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah.
TCU, whatever. But Stetson Bennett does that.
Yeah.
You think about the 2020 championship, Mac Jones just overmatching that team. 2019, Alabama doesn't play for the national championship. Who wins it? LSU, Joe Burrow, as we know all too well. You look at 2018 and 2016, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. It takes elite passing to win national championships these days. And the ones that Saban won and the ones that Saban lost, I think, are the ones that really illustrate that.
And he even had to bench Jalen Hurts for Tagovailoa to get that dimension to come back and beat Georgia in overtime.
So it's all
also that Georgia win over Bama. Bama was missing their two top receivers in that game.
Right.
I was actually having this conversation with a guy last night. I sold a Jameson Williams jersey auto rookie card too. We were talking about it. If that guy's healthy, Jameson Williams is healthy, Alabama probably wins that game. They were down to the third and fourth string at receivers. They made Keely Ringo look effective. I think Bama's a better team, but it goes along with what you're talking about. You take away that pass, Georgia looked a lot better.
Even you can even go back a little further. 2013 Florida State won that way.
Jameis,
with Jameis Winston, and then maybe more particularly Mike Evans and Rashad Green and Nick O'Leary, a tight end. And then this actually almost happened in 2009.
Almost.
But we all know why it didn't materialize.
It would have.
No need to reel it. No need to get back into that dark hole of despair.
Did y'all see the interview between Colt and Greg McElroy? He said he always wanted Florida, and I could not have agreed more. He's like, I did not buy the hype. That's who I wanted. McElroy's like, look, I love Texas. We hated Florida. We thought they were overhyped. I thought that was an interesting little antidote.
That's interesting. I would not have wanted Florida. I would have wanted Alabama.
In 2008, that's all Texas fans wanted after Oklahoma was a chance at Florida, because I think Texas and Florida was such a good matchup.
Yeah,
Justin, I'm sending this one your way. Is this the first game where the defensive ends really get to pin their ears back?
I mean, I feel like we've seen them already kind of pin their ears back.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been they're not blitzing, and yet they're getting incredible pressure on the quarterback. Now, Carson Beck's going to be a different guy. Like he's a quality passer. He's going to be, throwing the ball on Sundays. I don't think Texas has faced a guy that's going to be doing that yet on a regular basis. So this is going to be their first test to, hey, this is actually a really, really good passer. This is a team that is very balanced, throwing the ball around. But at the same time, I think they've kind of been playing with their ears pinned for the most part. That's why we've seen Barron Sorrell, Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke be so effective.
I think one of the key I've been harping on this all the time is like explosive plays. That's why Sark throws deep balls. That's why Mike Bobo will probably try to dial some up. But I think another key, and any coach will say this, if Texas can deploy that package that has Trey Moore, that dime package, that may be one of the most effective sub packages we've seen covering Steve Sarkisian's Texas. Like, just think of the guys it puts out there. It puts out either Broughton or Collins at the nose, Sorrell at one defensive tackle. You got usually Burke and Trey Moore on the ends.
Simmons and Trey Moore.
And then, Simmons roams around looking like another number 11. Or at least it's Moore and Simmons though. They switch it up a little bit. And
I think they both are on the field on that one.
Right. But they vary whether one's on the end and one's roaming.
Is that where Barron plays linebacker?
Yes.
Plays tackle.
No, Jade.
Yeah.
Oh, Barron plays defensive tackle now. I'm telling you, he can do everything, Rubble.
No, you had it right.
So, and then you got Anthony Hill. So it's one of the more unique things. Going to get to this one from our buddy UT Parking. Is Leonga Lafau starting at Mike? Anthony Hill's at Rover chess piece is such an advantage. I mean, I don't see any reason to change from last week, but like we kind of mentioned last night, Justin, there's still no reason to just not utilize David Benda.
No, there's not. And I think that's what Johnny Nansen has done really well, kind of quietly. We don't talk about that one as much. It's the development of these guys. Look, Leonga Lafau, when David Benda came back, I don't think he thought Leonga Lafau was going to take his job. And it's not necessarily taking his job. It's in some senses it is. But, I mean, Drew said this, and it really resonated last night. It's the standard. And if these guys are playing to it, you're going to eat. You're going to see the field. And Leona is so good at it. We actually talked about maybe next year Leona moving to Mike and having Anthony be able to roam around. And Leona's so good dropping in coverage. It's just ridiculous how talented he is at doing that. You're not going to put him at Mike in that regard. And so I think they're going to continue to tinker. I think you're going to see guys get moved around. We're probably going to see a front with those guys that we haven't seen before, because we know Sark and PK like to kind of have different new looks for these guys. And so, they're not going to move. They're not going to move guys around like that right now. Anthony Hill's still going to be your Mike backer. But is this a conversation in January? Probably. This is something we can revisit, because at the end of the day, you've got two guys that can play inside, that can play the middle. And that's two more than a lot of programs you see every Saturday.
Maybe something that's kind of confusing here also is that Lafau played Will last week and Hill played Mike. But because of where they line up, the Mike is kind of more the roving piece. And the Will is a little more of like,
Mike
you're not in as much space.
Mike has more space to cover.
Yeah. It's confusing because sometimes the Will has to play more like a Mike linebacker than the Mike linebacker. If you think of the Mike linebacker as having to like plug interior gaps and read stuff quickly and get there
Right.
fast and violent. So the answer to your question, UT parking, might be yes. It's just your terminology is just a little off, which we were surely LaFau is going to play at will again, and that worked so dang well.
I'm a fan of that one. I've got a question. Is this a game where Texas breaks out that true 3-4 that we've seen at certain points at the beginning of the season?
Maybe not as much. I think some. They do that when the other team plays with 2 tight ends. And Georgia doesn't play with 2 tight ends quite as much, even though they have a bunch of good ones, because Dominique Lovett is their most trusted receiver for Carson Beck, and he's a slot guy. If you play with 2 tight ends, then you don't get a slot. You just have 2 outside receivers. So they just don't, for the last 2 years, they have not been as much about playing with 2 tight ends. They've been much more spread in their formations. So probably some, but not that much. Not as much as if you're thinking like older Georgia.
Like this one. Hey, Charlie, what's going on? Difference with Beck and the other quarterbacks Texas has faced is the pre-snap and post-snap reads. Beck can read and find favorable matchups and know, hey, they're in cover 4 and take the check down or something like that. I think that's a good point. Justin, like, there's no question this is the best quarterback Texas will have faced.
It's not even close. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, this is a group that I don't think Texas has faced a quarterback that'll see the field on a Sunday just yet. This is going to be the first one this year. And that's, you can say, well, their schedule has this and that. Well, hey, it's not their fault. Michigan decided not to recruit a real quarterback for years. It's not their fault. And that Jeff Levy didn't bring one with him. That wasn't a Baylor kid that kept getting injured. I'm glad Charlie's bringing it because I was expecting a Gunnar Helm reply here. I was expecting some love for Gunnar Helm because Charlie, that's his man. But no, he's right. Carson Beck can do it. He can deal it. Look, there's no Ladd McConkey there. I think that's big because, man, that was such in a sense, a safety valve. I know Brock Bowers was that in some ways, but it really was Ladd, man. That guy was just – he could find little soft spots in the zone, get open, and, man, he could cut and go, and he's, getting paid to do it on Sundays. Carson Beck, that's the thing about Georgia. They've got 3 or 4 guys that you better cover. You better pay attention to. But I don't think there's one that absolutely scares you. I don't think there's one that just keeps you like, oh, we got to make sure he's bracketed in certain times. We got to make sure there's a safety over there. I don't think Georgia has that this year. And in some regards, that might actually help Texas because you know what? Just focus on what you do and don't try to so much confuse Beck. Just beat Beck. If you try to confuse him sometimes, I think you're trying to do a little too much. Just dance with the one you brought. Just do what you've been doing all season. If you can generate a pass rush with that 4-man front, get it. Don't worry about some of this other stuff. And so this is going to be a game that really shows what PK believes in his defense. Are they going to change anything? That's hard to say. Are they going to just keep doing what they've been doing because it's been so effective? That's what I lean towards. But again, this is the first time they faced a quarterback that can really dial it up.
One of the things about the Ladd and Bowers combo was that pressured the middle of defenses.
Always.
And what that meant was the middle of defenses really couldn't dedicate attention to, I don't want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, like there's not like a truly dominant, like that's a first round wide receiver on the outside that Georgia's had. They're great. They're probably above league average, but it's not like AD Mitchell's out over there.
Right.
And so that would mean that those guys would be left on islands. And so Bowers and McConkey could still do their thing, but then those guys were probably left on islands a little bit more than opponents wanted, and they would take advantage. Without Bowers and without someone like McConkey, like it's not as much pressure on the middle of that defense. And even so with Texas, guys like Muhammad and Barron, they can handle those matchups. Now that it's still one-on-ones very
In
often.
theory, yeah. And they're gonna win more than they'll lose their fair share.
Right. But that means they will lose some. That'll cause plays to go Georgia's way.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
But it's a different dynamic. It's always a push and pull. And the Georgia one would pull guys in various horizontal ways. I'm not sure exactly if they have that this year.
You know what I think would be a great, just a little side note on that. I would love if they were to play Reunited, the song Reunited by Peaches and Herbs. I think they should play that song whenever Bevo and Uga come out onto the field. I know that to me is as important as what Carson Beck is going to do to the defense. I want to know if they're going to get those two animals. I'm telling you, Joe, people are going to be watching that as soon as it gets on the field. I am very, very curious to see how they maneuver that dynamic because last time it backfired.
Before we keep on going, got to give some love to our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Got one from R. Jacob Woodyard. It's crazy to look at all the ways Sark has fused the two cultures and styles of Pete Carroll and Nick Saban. I'd love to see a big article on that from IT someday. Well, you are in luck because Charlie Williams wrote that. Oh, man. Was that before?
That was during the bye, I think.
It was during the bye. And I can find it and maybe retweet it.
Because Charlie pinched my idea. But
Charlie,
actually, he turned it into words, man. It was good.
It was really good. So, Charlie, if you want to go ahead and drop that in the comments for R. Jacob Woodard. And it's true. I agree with it. Like, there is an aspect of Saban and an aspect of Carroll within Steve Sarkisian, of course. But demeanor-wise, like Pete Carroll he could get after guys. And I think we all view Nick Saban as a total hard ass. But if you watch Game Day, like that, Nick Saban is also quite a character.
He's coming out of his shell. He's an old school man that has been hard and rigid and processed, grown up his whole life. Now he gets to relax a little bit. So you get to see some of his actual personality. And he's very, some of his old players used to say how funny he is. That's what he is. He really is funny. He knows how to give and take too. Like he has such a good way of bantering with a McAfee and those guys on Game Day. Like he knows how to dish it. And I love at least one time every time on Game Day, he's going to say something for about a 2-minute segment. That's something you need to hear for life. Like they should start calling it the life lessons 2-minute segment for Nick Saban, the 2-minute drill, because whatever he says for that 2-minute window is something you can stitch on a pillow and teach your family. But no, Saban's he's letting the guard down finally. He's that grandfather that was so strict on his kids, and now he's spoiling his grandkids.
The comment where he's like, what happens if you can't pay these guys and you're SOL and just live TV lets it fly? Like he's good. And like he can balance it. And I know Game Day's in town. They'll be on the South Mall. So right in front of the tower will be a pretty cool backdrop because there's a lot of tailgate stuff going on where they would normally do it. And Spoon is playing, which I'm a big fan of that at LCL. Hey, they pay per note, man.
The next thing he's going to tell us is he's listening to Fish in the background. PH Fish.
Hey, man, the Garden Show in '83 was something special, man.
Oh, God. Here we go.
But I'm excited to see. I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk to him, but we'll see so much of how much Texas he talks and respect for the program. That
Joe, I think people expected Nick Saban to kind of go and be quiet and kind of do his own thing in retirement, because he had worked his whole life, been, so driven his whole life to relax and enjoy it. I don't think people expected him to really hit this the way he has. I know it surprised me a little bit. He is so good at it. I honestly thought he was just going to sit back, do some consulting, some public speaking, stuff like that, make dinners at Bama, things like that. He's really adapted to it.
I know Corso is beloved on that show, but that's what Corso kind of was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not going to see a mascot head on Saban's head.
Yeah.
But I like that they still incorporate Corso. Now we're at a point. Remember, for years it was, guys, he's diminished. Let's kind of acknowledge that, and they wouldn't. Now that they acknowledge it, I love the way they do it. When they bring him in spurts, I think they figured out that happy balance there.
One last Corso tidbit. This is just a plain blue pen, but you know how Corso always points with a Ticonderoga pencil? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, no, he does. He does that. Yes. I didn't realize what brand the pencil was.
He owns a stake in that company.
He does?
Yeah. So
he's probably, his agent probably fixed that up. He's like, look, I'm gonna put this pencil in your hand. There's a lot of money to be made there on game day.
It sets the table for the sport. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Nothing better than Corso throwing an F-bomb at the Houston game. Nothing better.
Oh man, Justin, I'm trying to find a good recruiting question. We've had a lot.
We haven't had any. I had more people in these comments asking about UGA and Rubble than we have about recruiting. I don't know what people are thinking this morning. I think they're thinking more Texas, Georgia than they are that gigantic recruiting list. Look, I added a new visitor this morning. If you were at InsideTexas.com right now, you have seen a 4-star priority recruit that has been added to the Texas, Georgia list. So you have to come see us and hang out so you can find out.
You ready for a hanging curveball?
Bring it.
Do we covet Osborne over Guillory moving forward?
Yes, that actually they've already. That's a good question, Christopher. They've already coveted Osborne over Guillory for 2 years. Osborne has been number one on that board since like 4 days after he was born. Javian Osborne is the quintessential Tashard choice tailback. Does a little bit of everything. Smart, process-driven like Saban. Hey, catches the ball out of the backfield. Go watch his clips against Longview 2 weeks ago or last week. I mean, he's like a pinball. And so, Javian Osborne has always been number one on the big board. That has never changed. Guillory jumped in when he jumped in. He just woke up that day and decided he wanted to. Texas wasn't expecting him to do that. And so Osborne's always been number one. He'll be number one. He'll be at Texas for Texas, Georgia on Saturday. This will be the third time he has seen the Horns in 2024. And I think the Horns are the quiet leader there.
I know we've talked about Amari Latimer.
Got to have a big boy.
Running back from the Georgia area, from the state of Georgia. But if you go to On3's internal 2026 recruit rankings, there are, let me see how many I can get to because I'm going to have to make a couple clicks. Javian Osborne is the number 2 player in the state, and he's number 1, On3's number 1 running back. Here's how many running backs in Texas are in the top 100 of On3's rankings.
Let me guess the number. 8.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. And Guillory is number 6 out of that crew. He's number 95 nationally and number 14 in Texas. But Tashard Choice finally doesn't have to rack up the frequent flyer miles in order to find his running back. He can stay in state and find him.
We had said we thought that this might be, it was either this 2025 cycle or the 2026 where we thought Tashard is finally going to stay in state for a running back. It's like his first 2 or 3 years, he didn't sniff Texas guys. I think Trey Wisner was kind of the outlier of that group. And that was one that he kind of had to build from the ground up. I think he was still at Conley when that relationship started. Yep. And so that's how running back recruiting updates. Yeah, that AR, I got you. Like, they're good for 2025 right now. They love James Simon. They love Ricky Stewart. They're both going to be on campus in January. They are looking to get in the spring and play. I don't see them bringing in another 2025 running back. I do think they're going to go into the portal, and I think they will get the best running back available if possible. And it's going to make that room – I don't think you're going to have to worry about your Colin Pages and your Velton Gardners anymore on the injury report next spring, because obviously this was a rare occurrence when you lose 4 scholarship guys in 2 or 3 weeks. But they feel good about their 2025 cycle. They'll look in the portal for a guy. Now, don't expect some superstar to be there. It's going to be best player available more than likely. But I think that's kind of the gist. Texas is in an incredible spot with Javian Osborne for 2026. They're in a wonderful spot with KJ Edwards out of Carthage. They look really good with Amari Latimer. Tashard Choice, don't ever worry. And I'm not saying you're worrying, but don't ever worry about that position when it comes to Texas and recruiting. Tashard Choice has running backs locked down.
Make Ashton Genty say no. No.
He's going to the league.
I know. That's what I mean. Do we think Georgia has sound tackling in the secondary if Texas throws quick passes to the perimeter or over the middle in order to open up the run game? A lot of teams have played off ball with the Longhorn speed. Ian, what do you think on this one?
Georgia is not really in the habit of playing off, and no, tackling is not a problem for the Dogs. You gotta go at them. You gotta beat them down the field. Now, the good news is that Mississippi State went at them down the field on one-on-one throws, and Georgia got beat a bunch of times.
Which happened with one-on-one throws.
Michael Van Buren. He got tired of seeing him torch the secondary.
Yeah. Oh man, we haven't even touched on that. But that's what happens with one-on-one throws. You know, you win some, you lose some, and that's why you take them.
Yeah, but the Georgia hadn't been losing too many before, and they lost a bunch. So
that's a little surprising, even though we know that Mississippi State has some quality pass catchers. Like, they've got some guys out there that I think that can catch the ball. And don't underestimate Levy. I think he's always good to scheme up a few unique looks for whoever he faces. Mississippi State, I think these teams are taking them for granted, and that's why they're hanging around the third, fourth quarters.
You know,
Georgia ain't what they used to be in coverage. Also,
no,
they don't have. Yeah,
it's Stark. They still have Starks.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that we have not. You know, one thing we have not really touched on a whole lot about Georgia on offense is that Tate Ratledge, who may be one of their best offensive linemen, if not their best offensive lineman, was listed as questionable on the injury report last night. And that was a little bit of a surprise. He's their starting right guard. He did not play against Alabama. They also, Georgia had to put Mike Bobo's son at center in place of their regular guy. But Ratledge being questionable, that is how much impact do you think that makes, Ian?
Some, for sure. The other guy is solid. I mean, it's Georgia. It's not like they have only 5 or 6 linemen worth a lick. They have other guys. I think Paul was thinking that Ratledge was going to miss this week, but that Jared Wilson, the center, would be back.
I'm trying to see if Wilson was on the injury report. I can't remember.
He wasn't.
There you go.
Oh,
So that'll matter some.
He was listed as probable, so there you go.
You're hoping that Collins and Broughton really show out well and don't let Georgia push them around, and that is definitely easier without Ratledge. That guy's maybe their best player on the line, right? It's like we were talking earlier, like if Texas lost Kelvin Banks, on the one hand, they're losing probably the best player on their team, but on the other, is like the line going to crater? No. Like it's such a team, it's such a unit, collective effort. So, yeah, they'll be a little worse, but still good.
Still good. Their depth there is still strong. They've got some guys, Joe and I were looking at a story he helped me post yesterday about former Texas prospects. There's a lot on that offensive line that I'd forgotten about. Ernest Green, Daniel Calhoun. They've got dudes up there. That's why Georgia is Georgia.
Ernest Green's their starting left tackle. So that's
wow.
Yeah. St. John Bosco. This is an interesting one. R. Jacob Woodyard again. Does the staff take any anti-tampering measures? Imagine Hugh Freeze trying to set up a meeting with Wingo and Simmons in a dark parking garage. I don't think you have to worry about that.
You don't tamper with Texas players.
And even if any teams tried, there are cases where I don't want to say Texas gets right of first refusal, but you know how you guys know how restricted free agency in the NBA works. Like a player can sign a tender and then the team can match. Texas usually is given the opportunity to do so, and they do so for guys that they want to keep. A lot of this is also like why the Texas One Fund is so important for Longhorn football is because, you can go to the portal and, it takes what it takes to get guys like Isaiah Bond and other guys like that. They come to Texas for the offense, but they know that there's an opportunity there. He's got a sponsorship from Lamborghini. But just as important, and we've seen this play out at Florida with the Rashada thing. We've seen this play out at UNLV this year. Just as important is making sure you have the stuff to keep your guys. And at this point, Texas has the stuff to keep its guys. And then, by the way, Colin Simmons is in a featured role. Ryan Wingo is in a featured role. And as our Paul Wadlington has talked about, like, if a team wants to break the bank for somebody, okay, any team can do that for one guy. But, like, across the board, and like Eric talked about last night on the live, like, guys know that they have a good thing going on at Texas for a lot of different reasons. And so I doubt, like, the anti-tampering measures are probably keeping communication open, and that involves the program and maybe the collective as well. But, like, I don't think you have to worry about Texas being the target of its stars getting pilfered out of the portal.
Joe, if there's name one program that doesn't have to worry about this. There's one program in college football right now that does not have to worry about this. Of course, somebody can come on with those big offers, like you said. Nobody is tampering a kid from Texas. Not right now. The only ones are the ones that want to be. And if they want to be, they aren't part of that core of what they're doing right now. And you may not even worry about it. Simmons and Ryan Wingo, they're not only two of the best freshmen, they're two of the most compensated. They're also two of the happiest. They're also two pillars of this program already. And so it's a good question. It's a legitimate worry I could see from a fan side. But at this stage, now we couldn't say this a few years ago, but we can say this today on this date. Texas might be the one program that is immune to this anti-tampering. We know Michigan can get taken. We know Alabama's guys can get taken. We saw that happen, and we're not going to assume Texas can't. But right of first refusal is correct, Joe. Texas is not losing anybody they don't want to lose.
What's the Hugh Freeze pitch? It's like, hey, Colin Simmons, you want to leave this amazing Texas team in Austin and come live in Oxford and play on this team where you don't have Anthony Hill?
He's in the happiest village on the plains in Auburn.
And you don't have And you don't have Manny Muhammad buying you time to get to the quarterback, and you don't have Colton Vasek on the other side getting attention. And Wingo,
and you have to live in Auburn.
It's like, Wingo, I know you have this great connection with Arch Manning, but have you heard of whoever the heck, like, who is even Auburn later?
No, I think it's a good question, actually. I really do. I just think because all fans are going to think about that in the back of their mind. Like, man, I saw Caleb Downs taken,
you play the game
taken, stuff like that.
You play the game with any team, and it's the same. It's like you want to leave Austin, a great NIL compensation, the chance for Texas to up your pay if they have to, and then playing with all these teams is like, it doesn't make sense.
And if you win a natty in Austin, you've cemented yourself for life. And they're just in their freshman season. Can you imagine if Texas wins it this year, the enormity of what both of those young men are going to be able to do over the next 2 years in Austin? with a natty under their belt, that's when you could say, hey, that's a little unfair. That's unfair. And then that's when we say, so was the 2010s. So deal with it.
Oh man, yeah, it's
Freeze is a good pick. I think he's good to pick Freeze because Freeze is the quintessential dark room, slide a briefcase kind of guy, or a McDonald's bag or whatever Freeze is doing that month. But if I'm Colin Simmons, I would probably worry about getting thrown under a bus from Hugh Freeze.
I really like this.
Through.
This is actually a really great question because if you ever go to the Inside Texas message board, the coaching carousel thread is always active because we talk about who's this, who's that, who are the coordinators that are doing really well. Are there any hot seat coaches that Sark could bring in for the Saban rehab program?
Joe, how many times have I said bring Billy Napier? He is a great coach. He is a great recruiter. Once he gets canned, Sark needs to make that phone call. He has got connections to Texas. He has great connections to Louisiana. Billy Napier, if you talk to college coaches across the country, they absolutely, really, really like him and dig his style. Billy Napier's my guy. Get that guy on the staff.
I think I've heard it described that the best version of Billy Napier is the quarterback coach. And then behind that is the coordinator. And then way down here is the head coach. So another guy in that, quarterback brain trust who has all that. That's interesting. And to Bobby Petronic's point, do you need a rehab program now? Because Ian, you talked about like Scotty Hazelton and the impact he's had helping coach Texas star the nickel corner players. Like, that is a good point. I didn't even think about that. I guess, yes, because the titles are that way and there is still only so much money. But it's not like their opportunities are limited by they don't have any like restrictions really anymore. But still that allows for guys to come in and maybe get an opportunity being an assistant quarterback coach, stuff like that, while they're collecting an ample amount of buyout money.
Bill Belichick?
If anything, he's going to go to Seattle.
Bill Bedenbaugh?
I was about to say, Bill Belichick is probably going to be a head coach next year. And if he's in Dallas, I am going to laugh hysterically because he is terrible.
Who are on – I'm trying to think of guys off the top of my head who are on scorching hot seats. And
Dabo, maybe. I don't think it's
scorching, but it's toasty.
Mike Norvell, but I don't think they can buy him out.
Well,
Norvell got his mulligan last year.
Oh, Lane Kiffin.
Wait, we're talking about guys on hot seats?
No.
If Lane Kiffin crashes and loses 3 or 4 games this year, he's going to want to get out of there because they blew like $20 million on this roster, and if he comes up with 8-4 again,
Ian makes the point. Even if Kiffin is, yes, you grab Lane Kiffin. Kiffin and Sark together would just be comedy for us constantly. But Kiffin's not going anywhere. He's right. The only thing he might do is take the Florida job, and he's probably not going to take that because their NIL is so screwed up.
Y'all are looking at the wrong end on this. It's got to be like Napier. Sonny Cumbie has probably 0 friends in Louisiana Tech. Dave Aranda.
Aranda is the right answer. Oh, I thought Napier was the best. I was just coming up with wild ideas. Aranda is the one.
Yes, 100% get Dave Aranda. Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of like coordinators who are about to be.
Yeah, I've done so much better at this than I have.
Shown the door.
Ill prepared.
But who else is on like the score? I see people talking about Hugh Freeze and Norvell. Like they're not hiring those guys.
Hey, Nicollet in the coverage just brought Dana Holgorsen. No, emphatically. That is a culture killer and a drink killer, but mainly a culture killer.
I was about to say Dana Holgorsen.
Willie Fritz is still picking up the pieces of crap that Dana Holgorsen just left. like he had a dog in the office that crapped and they didn't clean it up. They just left it and it became like mummified. That's exactly what Willie Fritz is still trying to do this morning. He's in there with one of those floor waxers. He's cleaning up Holgerson's crap. No one has left more crap and more programs than Dana Holgerson. Crap and crap on crap.
I feel like Holgo may struggle to make Texas morning practices too, for different reasons. What about? Hey,
don't put him in Austin, man.
Well, you know who else is? I'm just trying to think all over. Like, how many friends does Sonny Dykes have in Fort Worth right now?
You know what? They're 8-10 or 8-11 since that national championship appearance.
You know what his friends are?
Those are dwindling.
His friends are all the money that they've tied up in him and his 2 assistants.
Yeah, the Bryles.
Bryles is making over $1 million.
Dallas giggling the whole time.
Bryles is making over $1 million a year. That Andy Avalos is making over $1 million a year.
Wow.
And I heard that recently, and I was like, oh,
that
athletic director thought he was like investing to set up TCU for the long run. And instead now it's just like bad money after bad or good money after bad. And they're in big trouble.
But they're going to be calling Gary Patterson soon. And I can hear a hit getting started. Get him inspired. I could see another album getting cut.
Between Avalos, Bryles, and Dykes, I think Avalos would be the best addition to a Texas coaching crew.
I don't want anything to do with TCU's.
And then
that stuff, nothing.
Oh, Drayton. Yeah.
Drayton. As long as he understands, hey, Drayton can do the exact same thing at Texas as an assistant consultant type than he did as the running back coach. He'll be the same thing. There's not a lot of on hands-on coaching, teaching, not a lot of hands-on recruiting either.
He got Bijan there.
And he got Bijan. No. He got Bijan. He got Bijan off of Ezekiel Elliott's cosign.
Joe Moorhead, that's a good one. Akron's in dire straits. That he will be sought after. You just can't get kids to Akron. It is what it is. So
maybe that'll be a potential Oklahoma OC hire.
Bill Beatonball. I can't believe you said that, Ian. They'd fire the head coach before they'd fire Beatonball.
We're about to run through the SEC, but if you want to come talk about all this stuff, go to our coaching carousel thread on the Inside Texas members only message board. You can get $1. You can get 7 days of access for just $1, and then you get 50% off your annual membership. After that, fellas, you ready to run through the SEC real quick?
Let's do it.
All right. Auburn at Missouri. Missouri as a 4.5 point favorite.
This has upset written all over it.
Yeah, I think so too.
If you can stop Luther Burden, you can stop Missouri.
I think Auburn, Oklahoma fans were saying this, and it sounded silly, but I think it was kind of true. Auburn is kind of good, but they are even better. They're even better at shooting themselves in the foot.
Right.
Yeah.
That's been Auburn, I feel like, for the last 10 years.
They surrender.
If you don't bring it, they'll be physical. But if you do, they'll put a bullet in their toe.
Their problem is that they're of the 30 or so guys who play on that team, number 30 is their quarterback, and he can't stop throwing picks. It's not a bad team. Like, they got good receivers. They have a decent running back. They've got a good recruiting class coming in because you can do that.
I'm scared for Deuce Knight. I really am. I send out some extra prayers to that kid.
Most of Freeze's quarterbacks throw picks, Joe. Quit hating on Peyton Thorne. It's not his fault.
6 of one thing, half dozen of the other.
There you go.
Maybe so.
South Carolina at Oklahoma. This is their first ever meeting. And I think it's, the Spider-Man meme. I think that's what this game may end up being.
I think South Carolina's more competent on offense, although they face
Sellers they are.
Yeah, they face a tougher deep. Yeah. I like the Gamecocks in this one. I think it's like race to 15 points. First team to 15 points wins.
South Carolina's defense isn't bad either. And
Yeah.
I think
No,
that's what's
like I
going to
said,
affect Mikey Hawkins.
These teams are very
Dylan Stewart
similar.
might can load a clip on you.
Let me see what the point total is on this one, because that'll first to 15 would be one of the more.
Here's a
disgusting
really
games
quick
ever.
anecdote on South Carolina because Bobby Petronic added about Nick Harbor.
Oh, that's
Joe, I
cool.
think you and I saw Harbor run track when he was in Austin.
Yeah,
I know I did. And
was
I
at
took
the relays.
Yeah, at the relays. I sat with a guy at the SEC media days, just real quick. Sat with him. He was a South Carolina beat guy, and so we were chatting. I was about to talk to Quinn, and I think the last guy coming in was somebody he was talking to, and he was kind of breaking it down. I said, "What's Nick Harbor like?" He said, "The most unbelievable freak athlete, but he's not a wide receiver. He's just not. They're forcing him. They're putting him in that hole, and that's what you're going to see from him at South Carolina at this point. He's not a wide receiver."
But he's 6'4", 230. So what are you going to do?
Out athlete almost every human on the planet.
The total for this game is 41.5.
Under.
So that means like 20
41.
to
You said 41 and a half.
Yeah, 1.5. So the implied odds are like the implied score is 20 to 19 or something like that.
Under.
I'd take it too.
Both of these teams have a decent defense, and that's going to fluster the offenses. Sellers is the difference maker in why they win.
I don't think Oklahoma can break 10 unless they score on defense.
On defense,
Yeah,
Which
they've
they could.
had to do that before.
which they could.
Yeah,
What the other thing about this 11:45 a.m. kick, so it's not going to be a real energetic atmosphere. I don't know. All right, the other big rivalry game.
It's going to be energetic when their fans are booing their own team.
they were booing in the Cotton Bowl a little bit.
I mean, it's going to happen. They're already like planning it.
I don't know if they were booing. They weren't there. They left.
When they were walking out, like you could hear them when they were getting a turkey leg. They would take a bite and they'd boo. You'd see them take a bite of something
Corn
fried
dog.
and they'd boo.
Yeah. They were saying boo earns.
Golly. Oh man. Alabama at Tennessee.
This is a great game. I'm going to look forward to this game.
Third Saturday in October. Alabama's a 2.5 point favorite, 2:30 at Neyland. So you're going to get enough people charged up for that great time slot. 2.5 to Alabama, 56.5 the total. So what? That's like 20. It's like 31-28. Does that sound about right?
Something like that.
Maybe 31-24. High 30s. Both teams in the high 20s is what they expect. I'm not sure if the Tennessee offense can get it going against this Alabama defense. Or maybe this is the defense to do it
This
against.
would be the defense that they could, but Nico, to me, has a hand cannon on his shoulder, but it's not fully weaponized. Like he's still trying to figure out reads. Heupel's still trying to figure out the best packages for him. They're doing a great job running that program. I think Heupel's been tremendous, but I know he's so physically talented, but there's some stuff missing from his game.
Yep.
He's skinny swoops right now.
Oh,
I would not.
it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
No.
It's he's a athletic young Quinn, more athletic young Quinn. I'd say it was him.
I think
I've got Bama in that one. I think Jalen Milroe is the key there. But Bama's defense, you don't beat them up front. You beat them on big plays, I feel like.
so.
If you watch the Georgia game.
I think during the bye, I said, and this was right on the heels of Oklahoma, Tennessee. I think I said Texas would face Tennessee in the SEC title game. If they want to do that, they have to win this one.
Does this game solidify the number 2 in the SEC if Texas beats Georgia?
Yes, but then there would be a gap between 1 and 2.
I don't know.
There's a gap
You know who
there.
might be number 2?
I don't know.
The next team we're about to talk about.
Oh, actually, yeah. But I was gonna say LSU now that they got Perkins on the
Hey,
bench.
A&M is about to be bowl eligible.
Yep. Maybe.
They're gonna thump Mississippi State.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I let me tell you something. Mike Elko, that team is solid. That team, they
They're more
don't
than
try to
solid.
do too much. They know what they're good at this stage, and I think they really focus on that part. Because
I'm with Charlie. I think Levy can keep it close just with big plays in the passing game.
I think A&M's defensive front's going to give them hell.
That's what I think too.
Texas,
And, like, the
A&M's secondary can be had, but not by Michael Van Buren. Now, if Elko wants to, punch or push Van Buren, it may motivate him. I'm not sure.
I mean, the fact that it's in Starkville, I don't think says much. But I mean, if A&M wins this game, the conversation has to unfortunately start being had about Texas A&M SEC title playoff contender. And I think
Isn't Missouri the toughest team they face outside of Texas this year?
Is who?
Missouri.
Yeah.
Outside the state, you're saying?
I'm just saying on their schedule.
Do they get Oklahoma?
I don't know.
No.
I think Missouri's their toughest game outside of this playing the University of Texas.
No,
they
play
do get LSU at home.
They still play
next
LSU?
week.
Okay.
Yeah.
LSU at home next week.
It is Kyle, yeah.
That's going to be telling. This game's not going to tell us anything about A&M. That one will, because I think Nussmeier is going to try to dial it up on that secondary.
So here's the Aggies ride home: at Mississippi State, LSU at home, at South Carolina, off, New Mexico State, at Auburn, Texas.
They could come into this game undefeated in the SEC against Texas.
Yeah.
They're gonna find a way, guys.
They should.
Life finds a way, and so do the Aggies.
Oh man! So real quick, I found an early line on Texas versus Texas A&M.
Texas minus 6.5.
Texas minus 8.5.
Bingo.
Good job.
So
I guess.
This one got more interesting this past week.
It's become a rivalry in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Sort of.
It's a little bit manufactured, but
it is. But Arkansas has done their part in years to make it an interesting game. I feel like every year.
Night kicks in Fayetteville are not an easy place to play. Just ask both UTs.
Good call.
If the Garrett Nussmeier that shows up over the course of like the last 3 minutes in overtime plays, this won't be close. If the one that showed up in like the first 50 minutes plays, then this one will probably be a lot closer than it needs to. Or it'll just be a good game.
With Taylor Green?
I'm looking that up right now.
Because didn't they move the ball better with the backup?
No, they had the game-winning drive with the backup.
He had a good, okay, you're right. Micah Singleton, yeah.
Green is not on the injury report, so he may be dinged up, but he's playing.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that he's going to be good and bad for you. He's going to make some plays that nobody else is going to make, and then he's going to do some bad stuff too. So you just have to take the good with the bad with Taylor.
Another guy,
Louisville High School shout out.
Another guy who's not on the injury report for Arkansas is Jaquindon Jackson. So they'll have their weapons. And it's weird. There's been a lot of talk about can you portal an O-line. The only team that has seemed to kind of do it has been Arkansas. So
we'll see how that holds up.
We'll see how that holds up. Is there anything to talk about here?
Just that Diego Pavia better be in New York for the Heisman.
Vandy.
I'm not expecting him to win it, but that joker better be there. He better be invited.
That's a good point. And, I though that will not be a raucous environment because you saw how many Alabama fans were there in
it might be.
Stadium.
It might be. Listen, nerds can have a fun time too. They know how to get with it.
Aren't they in Nashville?
Yeah.
That'll be a hot ticket.
It will. It really will.
But for Orange and
For both.
Yep.
Because no team travels like Texas and Notre Dame. Those are the two programs that travel the best in college football or college sports.
We're about to learn something this weekend.
Yes, we are.
I think you can include Georgia in that triumvirate right there.
Yes, sir.
Last one, Kentucky at Florida. Is this it?
Mark Stoops. Remember when Mark Stoops almost bailed for A&M and then he got sent back to Kentucky and now they're like 1-3 with like all these NFL players. What a mess.
They're always 1-3 with NFL players.
Yeah.
They have everywhere.
Texags tried to take credit for that. It wasn't Texags. It was what was it? It was Ross Bjork saying, "Don't worry, I got this." And then it's like, "All right, fellas, here's Mark Stoops," and everybody's like, "Get out of there."
Hey, it's similar to that guy Mike Stoops when he was almost hired as the defensive coordinator, and it caught out, and then all of a sudden it was put out pretty quick. Maybe there's something with that last name. I don't know. All I do know is they're not named Bob.
The thing that always pops up with Florida when having this discussion is if you fire Napier, you fire your head coach and you fire your play caller, and who do you promote on a 3-4 team to be good enough to call plays for this quarterback you want to be the future of your program? Like it's
he needs structure. He needs structure.
As soon as they lose to Florida, I think they wait till the end of the year. And as soon as they lose to Florida State, it's like, remember when they did it to Burt on the field in Fayetteville? Like the AD came over to Bielema and was like, "You're fired." And he goes into his post-game press conference like, "Well, I've been dismissed." I bet something similar happens.
Drew makes a good point. Always good to see my boy Kelson in the morning time. It's usually only on Wednesday night, so it's good to see him. No matter how much you hype up Pavia, and I'm not the only one. Paul Wadlington is the president of this hype club, and Ian and I are just on the board. We're just chairman. I think he does make a good point, but I don't actually think people take Vandy as serious as this. Like I think they understand it's Pavia, and they've got some great skill guys. Don't get it twisted. But no, I think he's right. If Texas goes in there and does that, they're going to call him overrated. Well,
they look like
Vandy overrated. I think they're properly rated.
They look like the trap game.
They are the trap game.
I don't know.
100%.
I think
you battle Oklahoma, Georgia, then that, and what they've been doing. That's absolutely the trap game.
I think Kentucky and Arkansas are still the trap games.
Arkansas is going to be a battle no matter what.
Florida lose to FSU. Did the Seminoles find confidence? Neither of these teams have, which is why it's going to be pretty darn interesting. Fellas, we went through Georgia, went through potential additions to the Texas coaching staff, went through the SEC. So had a lot of fun. If you're here, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. And again, if you have not quite done so yet, head to InsideTexas.com. You can get 7 days for just $1, and then you'll get 50% off of that first year. Ian, Justin, thank y'all so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.